Hello and welcome to another edition of Top 10 Worst of Lists, the best in worst lists that there is anywhere to be found, all throughout time, space, and all the various different dimensions within which Top 10 Worst Lists exists. You wanted the best, you got it. The greatest rock and roll lists of all time. Top 10 Worst of. Right here, right now. And what a pleasure it is to be here for you. My name is Karaoke, and welcome to something things don't have nothing doing, whatever. A lot of people don't have anything going for themselves. But you stumbled upon this intrinsically bountiful embarrassment of intellectual riches that is peerless within the scope of all intellectual endeavors. It's the primordial goo from which all life has arisen. I totally believe that stuff and whatnot. And today's top 10 worst stuff. You've come upon this list at perhaps our finest hour, because this list is beyond anybody's capacity to be able to see. I mean, like, we can't see the true importance, nature of the things that we're indulging upon while we're immersed in that endeavor. It's only really through hindsight that we experience life and anticipation. Of course, is a very big part of life. But the now doesn't really exist, does it? The now is something that slips through our greedy little fingers without us being able to ever really sort of experience it. Because here comes the now, here comes the now, here comes the... There it goes. Now it's gone. Now it's gone. Now it's gone before you know it. It's, but we could say, like, oh, you know what? That top 10 worst of list, that was one of the best things I've ever experienced. But you can't experience like that now, that indefatigable, indestructible essence, that God particle of nowness. And we're about to experience that. I honestly believe it. And that's his top 10 worst list today is the top 10 worst albums by the Beatles. Now, this is the holy grail of top 10 worst ofs. I can't think of, of all the top 10 worst ofs that we've done. This is my second time doing the top 10 worst albums of the Beatles list. I did the first one. Let me make sure I don't want to mislead you. The first time I did the top 10 worst albums of the Beatles list, I had to put in the dry dock because there was a piece of plastic in my hair and I had nose hair problems. Now, I tried to pluck the nose hairs before I went to this. This is my 5th episode that I've taped thus far in this particular session. And now my nose hairs are powerful, indomitable forces of nature. So I can't really tell. I can't really see too good, especially with these super hip shades that I wear. And I'm scared to look, quite frankly, because this is a terrifying sight sometimes. I wonder if I, like if I slept too long with the nose hairs, would they choke me out? But regardless of those opportunities, I can't use that episode, because I don't have the ability to be able. I'm not like freaking Paramount / Warner Brothers movies where I can put a team on trying to airbrush out the nose hairs for like an hour long stupid ass what you call it. And I don't have the ability of like Taylor Swift to have these things necessarily go word for word without any problem, and can just create Taylor's version of all of these top 10 worst of lists like she did with all of her albums that were supposedly not Scooter Libby, that was the Bush Jr. Press guy or something. Scooter Bunt Cake something. Scooter Bunt Cake. Stealing all of Taylor Swift's. Oh my God, still Taylor Swift freaking master tapes. Poor Taylor. I'll just have to wing it. You know, I don't remember any of this stuff. I didn't watch it over again or say like, oh, that's a cute little aside, or that's a nice little transgression, or that's a wonderfully poised transitional element between topics. Whew. I don't know. So I just got to redo it. And that's just the way it is. And I'm not happy about it. Because I'm on my last legs. I don't know if it can convey the physical dilapidated condition of my overall health. But it's tough. Anyway, so top 10 worst albums of the Beatles coming up here. But before we get into that, I got just a few little instructive checklist items here to get through. Number 1, I'm nuts, so I can't be trusted or relied upon. Any of the things I talk about here might totally be, fantasy sequences from delusional little, episodes that I've got in between, lobotomies. Or I had my tonsils grow back. I'm one of those people who had tonsils grow back. I had to have my tonsils out twice. It happened. It happened to me. I lived through it. I don't know why. I don't remember it. I was super young. One of my first memories was having my tonsils out. Rolling around on the cart, doing things happening around me, life. So I think that frontal lobes, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's other things that grow back that we don't even know about yet. Anyway, I can't be trusted or relied upon. If you hear something within the course of this particular list, or any of the other lists that I've done for that matter, and you think that that can possibly be true, this must be 100% grade A bulldink that this guy is trying to serve up on a platter, I insist, I don't recommend, I don't suggest, I insist that you go and find out for yourselves. Which is what you should be doing now at all times. I mean, I've seen some of the last few weeks since the Iran war started. I've seen more bulldink per square inch scrolling around on scrolling social media, social disease, whatever you want to call it, than ever. It's at Titanic levels. Just like my sperm count. You got to look up everything now, man. Not like now they show like Iran blew up 32 different aircraft carriers, and doesn't seem to make any sense. I don't trust all these ships out there and all these things with all these nuclear reactors on them. I mean, it seems like we're playing with fire to have a ship in harm's way during a war that's got an active nuclear reactor on board. I mean, what happens if the ship sinks or, explodes or something? Where was I? Oh, yeah, number 2. I'm not partisan. I'm not playing that game anymore. I'm not. Because if you create, project your own damaged goods on top of a huge group of people without regard to who they are, and just simply cast aspersions onto them based on what they are. That's the nature of bigotry. And even if you're right, it's still bigotry, because nobody's going to know all the people that, are grouped under a subheader. And I'm not talking about hate groups or individualized, people who are out there carrying out destructive or counterproductive behavior. And there's a lot of that going on. And I get it. There's, so much damaged goods out there. There's nothing. We're living in a society where there's absolutely, literally nothing to look up to. Other than a few little tidbits here and there that, don't paint a pretty picture about, the world at large. And yeah, I'll say it right now. I'm going to live by the golden rule from here on in. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Period. End of story. And that's just the way it is for me from now on. Because, they'll say that people following Trump are a cult of ignorant jerk-offs. And in some cases, that's right. But a lot of people who follow Trump do so because of how horrible the top level Democrats have been for so long. How could anybody really blame anyone for not liking Hillary Clinton? She's for her all of her formative years, she was a volunteer for Barry Goldwater. In 1964, hardcore, the hardest core Republican of all time in many respects. And then went down to the Republican National Convention in 1968 with Richard Nixon. Who knows what this person is? If you spend that much time of your formative years as a Republican, hardcore Republican, not just a plain old Republican, but volunteering for Barry Goldwater and going down to the 1968 convention with Richard Nixon, who knows what's really going on in that horrific brain dome there. And I say horrific because this is the person who bears sole responsibility for us not having national health care. Because it was, in 1993 when they the Clintons first took power, and there was popular sentiment for a single-payer national health care option, and they had both houses of Congress, and it was just sitting there for them to grab, and all they needed to do was say Medicare for all, and we would have all had national health for the last 40 whatever years it's been. 30 years. And so, but, she comes up with this phone book of nonsense, of endless complications and details that nobody ever needed to think about or do or anything, and literally submarined the only opportunity this country has ever had, really, for national health care. By herself. Why? Somebody with no experience in healthcare, no experience in Congress or red tape, Washington, D.C., all that kind of stuff, would be given such an incredibly essential, pivotal task is beyond anybody's ability to be able to find a rational reason. There is no rational reason. The only reason that we could think of is that she was specifically given the task of submarining the opportunity for national health care. And I don't know why everybody forgets that. And everybody thinks that this is a person who has the working class people foremost in their mind as a representative in government. Doesn't campaign in the blue wall states in 2016, saying instead that Texas was in play, and that, Texas was winnable, when she wound up losing Texas by 9 points. If anybody, there's no way that she's that bad at being able to find predictive trends and stuff like that in elections. she was using that as an excuse, in my opinion, to create plausible deniability when she lost. She didn't even step in the blue wall states during that campaign. Right? Am I right? Right? So, who is that? And, it boils down to two choices. I got to tell you, our society gave a lot of props to Donald Trump and a lot of help creating this show for him specifically to form him into a presidential candidate in The Apprentice. It was the perfect show. It was designed specifically to turn that guy into the image of being presidential. Especially The Celebrity Apprentice, where now he's, people of power and stuff like that he's bossing around left and right. That show empowered that person to become president and was designed specifically to do that. So if you're starting to dismantle all the various different things of Trumpism and how this came to be and all that kind of stuff, you got to really look at the big picture of what was going on. It's, a society-wide effort was being made by the ruling class in order to be able to create this maniac who they could use as a smokescreen while they pull back the curtain on all the quasi-crypto-fascist bulldink that they've been perpetrating since Eisenhower and Nixon were elected back in the early 50s, and consolidate all of that work and take their victory lap. Where they can finally say, well, we live, we can finally say it. The United States is now openly fascist instead of being a closet crypto-fascist country, which it's been for 60 years. And I hate to admit it, but, there's a lot of things that everybody has done to facilitate all this stuff. It's not, you can't blame, say that these are just a bunch of fascist ideologues supporting a narcissist maniac. And that's the only reason why we become a fascist state, an overt fascist state. It's just a lot more going on. And a lot of resignation of people to give themselves over to the power apparatus and not doing anything about it. And just watching it, being in Chicago as I am, I've seen, these fake Democrats up close. These mayors of the city of Chicago hate the people who live in the city of Chicago, the blue-collar types, the city of big shoulders, all the people with the big shoulders, hate them. Hate them! It couldn't possibly be any other. The things that they've done have been so despicable, so hateful of the working class of this city that they can't possibly be on the level. And those types of things add up. It's not just Trump. It's not just the billionaires. It's the lapdogs of them, and it's the apathy of the people who seem to absolutely couldn't care less. I mean, when Joe Biden won the presidency in 2020, he was clearly on his last legs. How do you not immediately go out and say, thank God we avoided this guy from becoming a perpetual fascist leader of the country, and then just in typical fashion, so what a relief to have him gone. Well, let me take a 4-year-long nap. And that's what people did. They just sat down, Biden's kind of flopping around and chewing on babies and stuff, and all kinds of weird and showing signs of dilapidation and everything like that. But what do people do? Do they come up with a grassroots candidate? No. Do they, demand full transparency from their representatives and stuff like that? Not really, no. Do they form a grassroots movement to find a replacement candidate to provide them some relief and have a real primary to test the guy to make sure that he's ready for another 4 years, even though he showed lots of signs that he wasn't? No. It wasn't any of that. None of it. And don't tell me that, the fact that our Democratic leaders misled us into thinking that he was ready for another 4 years. We should have known. We should see it. But we still, even with that, we believed them and said, okay, well, let's go and everything. They ran through primaries with no opposition whatsoever, really, and gave him the nomination. And then he goes and immediately falls asleep at at the presidential debate in 2024. And then there's panic and everybody's like freaking out, everything like that. It's 4 years too late. And then, you've got Biden finally gets forced out by, George Clooney and who else knows, whoever, was behind the scenes, Pelosi's and Hillary's and all that kind of stuff, eagerly with blood on their teeth, looking to, reshape the world in their own image. Sure enough, the minute Biden steps down, he advocates Kamala, who came in last place in the 2020 primaries, who left the race without even a single delegate, and for some reason was named vice president in 2020. It doesn't make a lick of sense, in terms of competency, or, and she only became less likable or popular during her term as vice president. And then she's force-fed to the Democratic Party, and they sit around and like, oh, okay, what else are we going to do? But the minute that Biden announces he's stepping down, Hillary and her surrogates are right there, ready to pounce. Hillary and Bill are at the New York Times, and it's a Sunday, if I remember correctly, and they got Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Tim Kaine are at NPR, talking with him, giving their full-throated endorsements to Kamala. It was the fait accompli. It was already done. And they didn't need to do that. They could have waited until as long as the Democratic Convention. It used to be that candidates were chosen at political conventions on the reg. And it doesn't make any sense that the least popular candidate from the 2020 primaries would be the candidate imposed on people. And it really personally grinds my gears when I see the Democrats marching under the No Kings banner. Not to see, that they're, 3 whole times. Wow, they did 3 whole marches in a year and a half. I feel so bad about the unveiling of the crypto-fascist state into an overt fascist state in the United States, that they marched 3 whole times. Ooh, hallelujah. Oh, gosh. No 2028, no populist grassroots movement to draft a candidate that's really worthy, that has something to say, that can go back to the roots of representing those who've become totally cast adrift and disregarded for so many decades and maligned and ignored, the working class, the blue collars, the independent businesses and stuff like that, who've been totally eviscerated by the political system for decades upon decades. Nothing, no talk of that, no ability to be able to live above and beyond our myopic vision of just adding to the consolidation of wealth of our malignant overlords and stuff like that. There's none of that. Again, it's not as simple as you think. And every time that you go and you say, I'm going to march under No Kings, you got to remember that the Democratic candidate in 2024 was imposed upon the Democratic Party, not elected. So the closer the candidate of the 2 candidates to monarch was Kamala, not Trump. And it just doesn't make any sense. And the movement itself doesn't need to be, just say no fascists, right? And that should be enough. There's no kings implies monarchy, and monarchy implies that there's no elections. Fascists have to go through elections. It's freaking, they might be, sort of ineffective sort of fixed plebiscites and stuff like that. But they do have to at least sort of maintain that type of thing where they can validate the system. Putin has elections in Russia. They're probably not for real or have anything to do with reality or whatever, but they go through the motions of it. It's part of the whole thing. But monarchs don't bother to have elections at all. They don't have a king, queen of England election and stuff like that, where they got another like rival, like the Habsburgs or something like that. They come in and run against the Windsor family, which, by the way, is a name that they adopted because their original family name is like hardcore German. The hardcore German sound to it, and they got rid of it, in advance of like world wars and stuff like that, because they thought, well, that sounds too German, and people are going to get the wrong idea and maybe chop off our heads. So they changed it to Windsor, a nice proper English British sounding name of Windsor. But the fact is that those that stuff, they don't have elections, and so the closer one is the one that was just assigned to the Democratic Party, head of the Democratic Party ticket. Kamala. No vote, no nothing. And so it seems, just as illogical. It's not as hateful. Kamala's walking around, going to album stores and buying vinyl. There's that meme about her going like, oh, I got myself some Charlie Mingus. Charlie Mingus? Nobody calls him Charlie. Charlie Mingus. Up your ass, Charlie Mingus. And stuff. But walking around, going like saying the right things, like, they're weird. They're weird. But doing nothing in order to be able to really, advance the cause of the working classes that you're supposed to be representing. You do that by winning. You do that by strategy. You do that by intellectual acumen and organizational skills and vision for the future and to tomorrow. I'm not buying this whole thing that partisanship means loyalty to the people that deserve adequate and equal representation. Until then, I'm just seeing two parties that are acting the same way to advance the causes of the upper class. And they do it in different ways, but they definitely all on the same page, acting against our better interests. And it's a real goddamn shame. I'm sick and tired of it. And I think that people need to do something in order to be able to advance their own rights and and because freedom requires eternal vigilance. And they're not even paying attention through the commercial break. That's just how I feel. So I'm not partisan anymore. I'm not playing your games. Go ahead and play your games. Spin your wheels until the AI robots come in and wipe us all out. End of story. So anyway, that's top 10 lists for today. It's a biggie. It's a biggie. Woo! It's a biggie. But I gotta admit that people think that a lot of these lists seem like they're created by artificial means, but they're not. They're created by this particular list is created by a team of former soothsayers and drug dealers who gathered together outside of Grant's tomb in New York and take copious doses of Dayquil mixed with NyQuil in order to be able to come up with these lists. One last thing before we get into it, we've got commercial sponsors, and they've been so popular, most popular, because they're so witty and so urbane. A new children's TV show coming to the Disney Channel, Attila the Honey. It shows the bloodthirsty and hyper-violent exploits of Attila the Honey, a cute little tyrannical Mongol horde. And then there's Loan Shark Week on the Discovery Channel coming up soon to your local cable purveyor. New from Craftco, it's the charismatic, easy-to-use, convenient machine that produces charisma when and where you need it in just the right amount. So you're going out on a date, giving a special speech at Alcoholics Anonymous, being indicted for money laundering for the Nazis, or going on ESPN4 on a semi-pro touch football league game. Whip out the charismatic and watch your troubles evaporate away. I don't even know what this is. Why am I reading this? Sebastian Bachman, Turner Overdrive, coming out with a new album there. Makes a perfect stocking stuffer. Remember, Christmas is never more than 364 days away. And McHale's Gravy and Gomer's Pile, two incredible sitcoms that make absolutely no sense. And from the producers of Too Close for Comfort, it's Glenn Close for Comfort. It's so bad. Oh. Whew. All right, so there you go. Now it's time. The time we've been alluding to, teasing you with. It's time for perhaps the most important top 10 worst of all time. And it's top 10 worst albums by the Beatles. All right, here we go. Number 10. Social Darwinism. So, there's this concept of social Darwinism that, before we get into the, specific albums, I just wanted to talk about social Darwinism for a minute. And that's a concept of creating an economic environment that's advantageous to dummies, or violent people, or lowbrow entertainers, or eye candy, all the various different types of negative personality types that they've created an environment that's economically advantageous for. They put out a movie like I think it was the hell was it with 50 Shades of Grey or something like that, and it goes to Dakota Johnson, right? Isn't that the way it was? And of course, Dakota Johnson is the child of a super rich, mega, Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith, right? 50. Hang on a second, I'm losing my cool. 50 Shades of Grey. So yeah, Dakota Johnson. Instead of giving the movie this highly sought after, big, huge role in this movie to somebody who's like a really great, emotive actress. And instead giving it to, the child of a couple of rich people who's can't act her way out of a paper bag. I saw that movie Doohickey, whatever it's called, or Daddy-O, or whatever. She's driving around the back of the car. The worst acting I've ever seen. It was it's like watching salt sucking all of the moisture out of a fish so that you can dry it out, and or pickling a fish so that it's like watching a fish get pickled. Or watching people make jerky. It's like sucking all of the moisture out of flesh so that it will survive for a long time and provide sustenance during the winter months. That's what her acting was like. And I can't possibly believe that, they're giving, roles like that to super rich people all the time. And they're talentless, and they're sometimes grotesque, lizard people and stuff like that. And they've got, you see, what's that lady from the freaking Star Wars, Daisy Ridley or whatever her name is, super rich, super forgettable, unremarkable person with no skills to, emotionally inspire people whatsoever. That's their that's their modus operandi. And they did the same thing with Rooney Mara, who's the daughter of the Mara family that owns like the New York Giants and stuff like that. So ultra mega rich, And again, she's getting all these big roles out of nowhere. Social Network, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Instead of giving them to actresses who like for talent, they're the gatekeepers are the most important casting directors now, because they don't care about talent. They only care about lineage, and they're focusing specifically on trying to make sure that they bring in as many children of rich people as they can, because they're already on the same team. They're on team aristocracy, whatever you want to call it. And those are the types of social Darwinism things that are ruining our society, because instead of providing a economic environment, a context within which people are rewarded for their sincerity or commitment to excellence or discipline or expressive nature or innate talent or rarefied developed talent, nobody's getting opportunity. Nobody's getting jobs because of that. People are getting jobs based on nepotism. People are getting jobs based on whether or not they come from rich families. People are getting jobs, and we're weird things like why the hell did Jonathan Majors get a job on a pivotal role for Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he turns out like really early into his whole shtick as Kang. It's revealed that he's been revealed that he was serial abuser of women. How did they not know that? I assert that they knew about that, and that they did it because of that. Because they knew that they would make another, emasculate black men in another way. And that's part of their job. It's not, their job isn't to create an environment that's based along lines of advancing humanity and creating a better society and culture for us to have more enriching lives and entertaining lives. It's not about that at all. That's not what the movie business is. It's about social indoctrination. It's about brainwashing. It's about turning us into a bunch of empty-headed, obedient, servile morons. And that's what social Darwinism does. It rewards athletes. I mean, why did Howard Cosell, hate him or love him or hate him, he used to always make the point about why athletes were being made into announcers on and commentators in sports, simply because of their stardom and without any regard to their skills as announcers or their intellects or experiential knowledge of sports in general and their specific sport specifically, because it demotes the importance of intellect in sports and accentuates and boosts the idea of ignorant pretty boys and jocks being more important, validated, and economically more survivable than people who are stronger intellectually. And it's helped create a societal-wide context of a hatred of knowledge, a hatred of intellectuals, a hatred of anybody showing any sort of intellectual leanings. And it's that's what social Darwinism is designed specifically to do, and it's been a huge debilitating factor in the destruction of humanity. Our number 9 out of the top 10 worst Beatles albums, Tattoo Theory. Now I've got a tattoo theory, and again we'll get to the albums in a minute here. But the tattoo theory is this: that why the hell are so many people getting gigantic body art? Like, it's insane. The level of body art. This means like every major star has got massive body art. It's insane. And you talked about people in their upper 50s and 60s and stuff like that. Ben frickin' Affleck's got a back tattoo that makes him look like frickin' Caligula or some kind of insane derelict, freaky satanic monster. And it's all over the place. Freaking David Lee Roth. Have you seen what he did to his arms? What the hell is David Lee Roth? He's got to be 65 years something old or whatever. Getting his arms done up like they're freaking designed by Gaudi, that crazy Spanish guy with all the ornate designs and stuff like that. It's insane. Why are all these people getting all this insane, gigantic body art? What the hell is going on with these freaks? And so many of them, all of them, really. Dave Bautista, nuts. Dwayne Johnson, freaking crazy. What's his name? That roly-poly guy, who everybody hates. Jonah Hill. I mean, crazy level of body art. And these are all actors who, the body art limits the amount of things that they can do within their roles. I mean, what do they, if they eventually have a sort of conservative role, they got to cover all their body art somehow. It makes no sense at all in terms of logic, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of just the old craziness of super old people getting this massive. I mean, and it's happened so fast. In like 5 years, just off the chain. What the hell is going on? I think it's a desecration of the body as a temple. I really think that there's something weird, some sort of cult type of thing going on in the way. I hate to be that way. I mean, most of the people when I hear stuff like that, I start thinking the cuckoo time or like that. But swear to God, I mean, it's like nonstop nuttiness. Hang on a second. Hang on, don't go anywhere. I think I might have a little bit of something to help me here, just kind of navigate things. And this is an out-of-date list, but I do have, I believe, a listing of tattoo people that just a really short preliminary list of tramp stampy, face tattoos, like what the hell? It's so revolting. Do people think that that's cool looking? So when Tyson did it, was only about 20 years ago when Tyson did it. It was like the first major league person. Everybody thought he was freaking out of his freaking mind. Now people get it and they're like, oh, the really Jelly Roll, this really handsome looking guy. Look at those killer face tattoos he's got. What the hell? If that guy ever has to go, get a real job and stuff like that, are people really going to hire that? But anyway, so massive body art tattoos. I got a few just listed. This is just really preliminary. The Rock, David Beckham, Ben Affleck, Joe Manganiello, or whatever his name is, Angelina Jolie, Deion Cole, Ruby Rose, Dylan McDermott, Scarlett Johansson, Shia LaBeouf, Johnny Depp, Justin Theroux, Bella Thorne, Megan Fox, Paulie Perrette, Joe Rogan, Lena Dunham, Keke Palmer, oh, hang on a second. Here I'm having Justin Bieber, Ed Sheeran, Adam Levine, Post Malone, Wiz Khalifa, Billie Eilish, Chris Brown, Miranda Lambert, Drake, Zayn Malik. I'm sorry, I don't listen to TV or radio much anymore. I just read. so I don't know some of these pronunciations. I apologize if I offend. Lenny Kravitz, Jelly Roll, Lady Gaga, Machine Gun Kelly, Miley Cyrus, Ariana Grande, Joe Jonas, Travis Barker, Rihanna, Harry Styles, Paris Jackson, David Lee Roth, Keith Urban, Cheryl Cole, Cardi B, Miranda Lambert, Demi Lovato, Halsey are all down with the extreme body, not just a little tat for, as a keepsake or a memento of a special time in their lives or a relationship or whatever. It's just gigantic, all-encompassing body art. That's just, I don't know. I've always seen, and no offense to, well-meaning people who are just looking for something different to do and have, fun time with it or whatever. I'm not one to say that I'm all that great of a person anyway. I could sit here and do a whole hour-long special ragging on myself for all the various different underwhelming things that I'm responsible for, or my own. It's quite a thing to feel bold enough to be able to do all this finger pointing when I'm looking like this, to be honest with you. But it just absolutely, this is a self-inflicted wound. I just don't get it. I look at it, it comes across to me as if it's sort of like a disfigurement. And that's just me. I know that. I know I've got like a hyper creepiness about tattoos that I fear, but that's just like something else, man. And it's just the widespread nature of it and the massive size of these body art installations is just so overwhelming to me that it would be, it seems like, it just feels like some kind of doom and gloom stuff that's going on. It's just really beyond my ability to be able to, to handle it. It's scary to me. It's like, something is taken over all of these people all of the gatekeepers and stuff like that, who are all beyond, on the other side of the wall. It just feels like, I don't know, man. Like some of my apocalyptic fantasies about the AI robots coming in and the destruction and elimination, in fact, of the human race, that I think that a lot of people are forced to endure these body art things as a rite of passage. I worry about it. I do. It keeps me up at night. Right now, I've been up all night doing these top 10 worst of lists. So, yeah, definitely, very definitely keeps me up at night. All right, so top 10 worst Beatles albums. Number 8, Peter Jackson. Now, Peter Jackson, I'll get to the albums later. Peter Jackson is like a guy who feels to me like he really is averse to integration in his movies. I don't remember. I'm trying to think of a Peter Jackson movie, and I can't remember. It's been so long since I've seen that first one with the weird things or whatever that movie's called. But I don't remember him ever having anybody of color anywhere in any of his movies. Like he did in King Kong, but they're all the heathen natives and stuff like that he, doesn't seem like he's all that into working with people of color. And yeah, he had, Billy Preston was in the, Let It Be movies and stuff like that, but he's not in there a lot, and he's not shown with any sort of interviews or anything that shows any sort of side as much of his personality at all. Peter Jackson, I'm worried about the Coen Brothers. The Coen Brothers, the only times I've seen, a lot of the times that I've seen people of color in their movies, which are very few and far between, are, The Lady Killers, I think it is, the remake of the old Ealing comedy that they did. And, they've got one of the Wayans guys is in there as the most repulsive, stereotypical, insulting of black person I've seen in modern movies, period. It's just, that's so incredibly horrifying what they did there, that particular character. And then you've got the blind guy in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, who's like pushing the cart, and he's kind of like off on his own sort of trip and stuff like that. And they got Gus Patch from Intolerable Cruelty or whatever that movie is, where he's they do show him with family and stuff like that, sort of celebrating, but they also show him as sort of like a glory hound type of a guy who's, going out and, kind of private investigator, kind of a little sketchy. Um, and I'm running out of examples of people of color. Oh, they've got Jesus, the Jesus, I think it's pronounced as, in Big Lebowski, who's a child molester. Yeah, I mean, it starts to really pile up, and you got a lot of those movies are all white, aren't they? Hudsucker Proxies and um, not Blood the other one, Miller's Crossing, and um, a lot of white people in Burn After Reading, a lot of white people in just about all our movies. Of course, you got Old Men, No Country for Old Men, and you got the psychotic, satanic looking a villain as a person of color. It just gives me pause. And I think, what was the other one that I was going to say? Who's also seems to, Spielberg is kind of like that a lot, where he seems to choose subjects based on the fact that those subject matters provide a smokescreen for him to have, all white main characters. And then the two movies that he did that had a lot of actors of color, namely The Color Purple and Amistad, are, not showing black people in a flattering light. A lot of them are in Amistad, almost all of them except for one are slaves, and then in Color Purple, there's not exactly a high-minded, aspirational story about people of color. So he's chosen his subject matters very carefully and doing a lot of stuff like Warhorse, and while there were black people who were serving in World War II and stormed the beaches at Normandy and whatnot, his Saving Private Ryan doesn't have a single person of color in it. It's a 20-hour long movie, and Jaws doesn't have a single person of color in it. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I don't think has a single person of color in it. Major character, and there's a lot of that going on. Gosh, I'm sorry. There's one other one that I wanted to throw under the bus here and point that out. There's a lot of that going on with. It's just sad, and it makes me sad to think about. Of course, the biggest of them all, Martin Scorsese. That guy doesn't even know. I don't think he knows any people of color. The only person I could think of outside that one movie that he did about the more recent movie that he did about the oil and Native Americans and stuff, which I didn't see, unfortunately, so I'm a little bit uninformed and able to make a full, sweeping, panoramic indictment of this guy being a full-on white power Aryan but I don't remember a single other movie that has anybody of color in it at all. The only one that I can think of is Raging Bull. And in Raging Bull, they've got a depiction of Sugar Ray Robinson. And the Sugar Ray Robinson character that he got is the most evil-looking person ever. He doesn't speak. He doesn't... he's like this, machine. He looks diabolical, and every scene just looks like this weird, sort of like a universal monster type of depiction of Sugar Ray Robinson, who was an ebullient guy, super talented, probably the best pound for pound boxer of all time. He's the guy they should have made a movie about, not freaking this crazy wife-beating, pathological maniac. It's just, But his depiction of Sugar Ray Robinson is just horrifying. Again, Casino, not a single black person, right? Right? Was there a single black person in a major role in Casino? No. Was there a single one in Goodfellas? No. Was there a single one in Mean Streets? No. Was there a single one in Raging Bull? No. The only main character they got is this crazy. I mean, look at the look on the guy's face in Raging Bull. It makes him look like a freaking monster. And that's just not the case. Wolf of Wall Street. Was there even no? I don't remember a single main character of color in Wolf of Wall Street. How does this guy get a free pass for this long and not having anybody in any of his movies? I just don't get it, man. All right, so in the top 10 worst Beatles albums list, number 7, Kinks banned from touring the United States. Now, the Kinks came up, in a certain era when rock and roll was first transforming away from the early days of rock into like a whole new progenitor of diverse and virtuosic music. Expressive music, and the Kinks were like the beginnings of both punk and metal. In the early days when they were produced by Shel Talmy, and they had, banger after banger with "You Really Got Me" and "Till the End of the Day" and a bunch of others of these riff rockers and stuff. And they were actually, and where there was Beatlemania, which was a certain sort of hysterics that would occur at Beatles gigs and stuff. And then there was what was going on at Kinks shows, which was a much more sort of scary, potentially violent environment that mostly guys were attending, and they're getting real freaking riled up at these shows. And I don't know, the Kinks got banned from touring from the United States all throughout these early days. All these early years weren't allowed to come in until probably like the early 70s. I think it was as long as that. And nobody knows why. Nobody has any idea as to what the reality was behind their ban. Some people talk about, some kind of union thing. I don't know what the hell. But the fact is, I believe that that this was done because of the, sort of like, it's too heavy for the United States to unleash into this environment. I think that the Kinks, had they been allowed to tour in the United States during their heyday in the mid-60s, that they would have become gigantic. And people would have been all freaked out. And it would have been all this stuff that you saw at like punk shows and stuff like that, violence and moshing and all that thing, 12, 13 years before punk even happened. Because that's what was starting to happen in some of their European shows. And it was just stopped. And so the Kinks had no alternative but to stay in England and focus on, trying to make a living best they could in England. And so all throughout their most creative years and the biggest years of rock, where all that stuff was sort of emerging and, forming gigantic lifelong superstars, the Kinks were hobbled by the fact that they weren't allowed to tour in the United States. Now, even the Rolling Stones were considered the bad boys. The Kinks had the Rolling Stones blew them out of the water. It was just, beyond anything that the Stones were able to sort of inspire in their fandom. Even though that they traded off of the idea that they were like super bad and could not cater to the expectations of society at large at that time. And so the Kinks, having the only audience they had was in England, and so they became anglicized, for lack of a better term. All that raw power and angst that had driven like uh, till the end of the days and all day and all the nights and such morphed by virtue of the fact that they never had the American experience to really take off the way the Beatles and the Stones were able to do. And so that initial intensity calmed to the point where they're doing like pastoral types of, by the end of the 60s, they're doing Village Green Preservation Society, which is like all this, like so almost like a agrarian, super British twist on rock music. It just, I don't know, it was beautiful, it's amazing, creatively as powerful as anything that anybody was doing back in that era. And Arthur, which is like this sort of like concept album about I don't know, British empires and stuff like that. And it's just, I mean, Some Mother's Son and Victoria and Song Australia and Shangri-La. I mean, there's just so many incredible songs. They're so powerful, and it's all, contoured by the fact that they couldn't do their hard rock in the United States, so they had to, make themselves popular within England and make a living off of that. And they changed, and nobody knows why. But I think it's because it's censorship. That the United States was like, they're looking at the reactions that people were getting in Kinks concerts throughout the continent, and they were like, no, thank you. And it's just weird. It's weirdness. I mean, later on they would go on to ban the Clash's first album for the same types of reasons. They just didn't know how to control that type of thing in society at large, and so they're like, well, we're not going to even bother with it and just ban it and set it and forget it. Number 6 of the top 10 worst Beatles albums. How come no one has invented a reverse Cracker Jacks thing where it's a box full of small toys that are pretty much like useless, like, with one piece of caramel corn stuck in the middle of it? Huh? Number 5, the top 10 worst albums of the Beatles. Does Amazon Prime have... this is stupid. I'm not even going to do it. I'm skipping number 5 because it's stupid. Wait, let me see if I can find another number 5 real quick. Number five. Dirty dish rags. There you go. What's up with them? What's up with dish rags? Thoughts. Puritans. What's up with that? Why do we make a society based around Puritanism? I mean, those people were outcasts from Europe. They were thrown out of Europe because they were just troublemakers and jerk-offs and everything like that. We built our entire society around the ideals of Puritans who were rejects from Europe. It just doesn't make any sense. We were doomed to failure from day one. All right, there you go, Puritans. Number 4 of the top 10 worst Beatles albums. What do you think it would take to get MAGA to change its goals from Make America Great Again to focus on the Six Flags theme park outside of Chicago called Great America Great Again? So their slogan wouldn't change much as it became Make Great America Great Again. What is the again? Ultimately, can somebody please explain to me what time frame we're talking about? The again. I mean, there's lots of obvious choices that could be in play here. I mean, certainly when they did the original Constitution where they defined black people as being 3/5 of a human being, that sounds like a potential again for the Make America Again people, or maybe the 50s, the Leave It to Beaver mentality, the happy days, as it were, of suburban white bread mentality of everything being, perfectly good and waspy and whatnot. That seems like a potential again. But you could also have the Reagan Revolution days in the 80s where, the moral majority and everything like that is sweeping into power. And you got the beautiful, gorgeous Adonis, Dutch, Ronnie Reagan. And that could be an again. But when is the again that we're talking about here? When was America great? And so that we can finally just sort of discuss the merits or demerits of the whole ideology of MAGA and try to figure out what the hell it is that they're looking for. Because the way it is now, it's sort of open-ended. Like, again, what do you mean? Talking about 1620 when the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock? Plymouth Rock landed on us? No, the Pilgrims were all outcasts from Europe. That couldn't possibly be the again that they're looking for. When you're talking about a bunch of, people that were hated all throughout Europe and thrown out of Europe, thrown out of the Netherlands, thrown out of, the continent completely in order to be able to just get rid of them because they're all a bunch of troublemakers that nobody liked, nobody wanted to be around, nobody wanted to assimilate with. And that couldn't possibly be the again that they're talking about. Could it? I mean, is that what they're looking for? Number 3, top 10 worst albums of the Beatles. Movies aimed at kids that glamorize criminality, such as Despicable Me, Bad Guys, Zootopia, all of which have major league main characters that are all criminals. Are they trying to glamorize criminality and socialize kids to think that criminals are cool? It seems like it, because there aren't a lot of movies that compete against these. There's like 20 different Despicable Me movies and offshoots and things like that. And then they've got, Bad Guys has got its first sequel. And that's all about, criminals that are, supposedly, I guess, a heart of gold and something like that. It's just the glamorization of criminality that is the underlying subcontextual theme within those movies. And Zootopia, one of the main characters is like a con artist. I just don't get it. It seems like a lot of aggrandizement of really regrettable personality types that kids are being, forced into thinking are cool. And I think that's a low grade level of indoctrination that they're trying to do because there's just so much demand for criminality in our society. And it's not like they can advertise for that type of stuff on Craigslist. They got to have another way of being able to develop and recruit talent for all this criminality that's going on in our society. And I think these movies are how they do it. Number 2, the top 10 worst albums of the Beatles. Artificially popularized cultural trends force-fed to us as a means of surreptitious social engineering. 50s revival, disco, MTV, Clear Channel Fox. I mean, it's like these... they're force-feeding us a bunch of indoctrinational countrywide things that just are all pointed in the same direction. Creating a society that's hyper-conservative, creating a society that glamorizes a white power and surface-minded phoniness. The 50s revival was almost like a nonstop thing, trying to get people to negate the idea that the 60s actually took place by glamorizing the 50s. So you get, early on, you get a revival of the Beach Boys by having they have 2 double album best of releases that, shoot up to the top of the charts. And so they're getting heavy levels of spins, heavy rotation spins on the airwaves now. And it's not the Beach Boys, the weird stuff from the late 60s. It's all the early stuff, this California Girls and all that kind of thing. So, and then that's followed up by, Animal House, which is a glamorization of the 50s and the fun, anarchic types of behavior of rogue fraternities. And then you get Happy Days, which, comes right out and says it, that our happy days were these times that they're showing you in the TV show of suburban Milwaukee with all white people. And even they had the one person of color, Arnold, Pat Morita, that they kicked off after the first season and brought in a big, giant Italian, big-nosed Italian guy. So, I mean, they're telling you right there that they want you to think that our happiest days are all behind us in those suburbanite Milwaukee 50s environments with all white people. Forget all that stuff about, freedom of expression, inclusion, and diversity, and integration, and all those, horrible things that happened in this gross little dirty 60s. And then you had Grease to round out the whole package. And so the 50s was really, all throughout the 70s, the 50s was the prevalent trend. It was all force-fed to us, though. It wasn't organic. This wasn't the mistake that one after the other, all these like 50s revival things happened one after the other. Not organically, it happened specifically, systematically, and intentionally, as a means of getting us to bleach all of the effects of the 60s out of us as much as possible. And then, you follow it up by, the polyester Nirvana of, or Valhalla of disco, and MTV, who's turning music into a fashion show, and then Clear Channel / Fox, who just turned all of, radio and cable TV, and even, a fourth of the broadcast networks into indoctrination devices, just designed to promulgate hate amongst people for other Americans, and to advance ignorance and anger, futility, and lies amongst people at a rate that's never been seen before anywhere on the planet. And then number one of the top 10 worst Beatle albums is, here we go, drumroll please, I'm from Stinky Onion. Yes, Stinky Onion. Woohoo! What do I mean by Stinky Onion? Well, look, hey, so we get like the 2 weeks before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, every single one of them, every media outlet all of a sudden starts referring to Kiev as Kiev, pronouncing it as Kiev. Now, this happened all at once. There is no doubt, based on my experience, that this was organic, that every outlet all of a sudden is all migrated to Kiev as the pronunciation of Kiev or whatever you want to call it. This is all coordinated somewhere. Somebody's giving directives to everyone within media to act with unanimity in order to be able to create the illusion of compliance. In this case, it also plays into the whole idea of the fake idea of some mythical liberal media that's happening out there. That all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, now we're going to call it Kiev because that's just, that's how we are. That's how we roll. We're so darn cool that we're all doing it. It's all Kiev. We're not leaving until we're Kieving. It's all manufactured, of course. But the fact is that, a lot of people, in terms of like this political correctness, which I believe to be a right-wing tool that's used to be a wedge device for people on the left to create dissension and subgroups on the left and alienate, in fact, many people on the left who become offended at being attacked by people just because they're, however many years they've been living with everything going in one direction to be able to turn on a dime like that, and all of a sudden have to, people, human beings aren't necessarily plugged in the same way that media outlets are, where they get given a directive where they have to start, using the word Kiev as Kiev every time out of the box, and then people get corrected for stuff like that. They will get turned off and they will be offended by the fact that, that all of a sudden people are telling them, people who have absolutely no contextual knowledge or historical based knowledge or experiential knowledge or whatever it is you want to call it, to be able to call the shots and cast aspersions upon people for these little, failures to comply with the political correctness task forces and whatnot, that they have an antipathy for it. They feel like they're being pushed aside, that they, it's through no fault of their own. Why should anybody have, be forced and victimized to change that muscle memory in such a short amount of time, and they, push against it. You see, some of these are innocuous, some of them are deeply offensive, like the Confederate generals and stuff like that, statues of Confederate generals. Stone Mountain is out there somewhere still. You think about the world outrage that would exist if there was an equivalent to Stone Mountain in Germany, dedicated to gigantic sized relief sculptures of Hitler and Goebbels and Himmler. You think about what the world will never tolerate that, and yet in America we have a gigantic into a gigantic mountain, carvings of Robert E. Lee, was it Stonewall Jackson, Jefferson Davis is who isn't carved into Stone Mountain. It's just, it's horrifying. It is. It's horrifying, and even to a certain extent, Mount Rushmore is also horrifying. It's also a war crime and a hate crime all at the same time, as well as Stone Mountain. And then there's stuff that's a little, like, I don't know, that falls in between the cracks and stuff like that, that is, sort of controversial and whatnot. But the fact is that, if we start changing all of the places that have adopted, like, say, Native American terms or names to the places that they've been applied, I got yelled at for talking about spirit animals before I realized or knew or was informed of the fact that spirit animals are, sort of saying my spirit animal is, a jackalope or whatever. People that deem that as offensive behavior. And I'm like, okay, well, I used to think that was kind of like a fun thing to kind of talk about and whatnot. But if you want to get rid of that, whatevers. I'm not out to intentionally be hurtful to people or utilize terms that have negative connotations or whatnot. But the fact is, where do we stop? And Chicago, the name of the city, just so happens to be a Native American term for stinky onion, which is what used to grow in this area. So I insist that if we're going to go and start to delve into these types of things, that we stop everything, and immediately change all of these things all now, right now. No more. All these terms and stuff, you're going to get rid of Chief Wahoo. Great. Let's just get rid of all of it. So Chicago needs to change its name to Stinky Onion. And all these other places that we've, utilized, and there's a million of them, and that we need to change them all to something less innocuous. I'm thinking that for Cleveland, I think we should go like Fartburg or something like that. And, but we need to, I don't care how much it costs. I don't care. It's like it will immobilize us for decades to try to fix all these things and pay for all of it. But hey, what the hell? We need to have our priorities straight. And, we don't want to set any precedents for people having, sort of having their feelings bruised. So we need to start let's just purge all of society from anything that has any sort of tribute or allusion to something of a previously exploited culture. And that's it. So that's it. That's all the time we have for today's edition of Top 10 Top 10 Worst Beatles Albums. I didn't really get around to a lot of the albums themselves, but I think, a certain amount of the nature of... I mean, like the Beatles don't really have any worst albums, do they? Beatles for Sale, kind of... I would have rather seen them do a few more rockers on introducing the Beatles, or what is it, Please Please Me in England, I guess it was called. I would have loved to have seen them do Some Other Guy. Studio version of that would have been excellent right around that time, instead of maybe Anna or whatnot, or perhaps one of my favorite rockers from like the Star Club days is I'm Going to Sit Right Down and Cry Over You, and Ringo on that. And we hear a little bit on a better version of it on, a cleaner version of it on BBC recordings. But of course that wasn't released at the time. Would have got rid of Misery and replaced that with Sit Right Down and Cry Over You. Because that was, that was punk. More punk than any of the things from the Kinks or the Stones, or even, rivaled the Who. The intensity. Sit Right Down and Cry Over You. You listen to the Star Club, the dirty version on the Star Club mix is Ringo's just out of his freaking mind, man. It's just like intense, way beyond anything that has been attributed to the band. If they would have put that song and Some Other Guy on the Please Please Me album and ditched Misery and Anna, I think, are the two that probably could have, been kicked to the curb. And then Leave My Kitten Alone would have been a lot probably better of a cover version than Mr. Moonlight on Beatles for Sale. But, it's not horrible. Mr. Moonlight is kind of horrible, but the Beatles for Sale album's got some bangers on it. I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. It's kind of interesting, and for a superstar group of boy band to start doing like Babies in Black and I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, all these No Reply and all these darker minor key tunes and stuff like that is interesting, and laudable in its own way, and but still I could have seen a few better rockers. But we're not talking about top 10 worst of Beatles albums. What do you do? Yellow Submarine. The 4 songs that they did were great. The rest of the album, why are you doing an album? Why is this an album? And the American versions of a lot of these things are probably regrettable. American version of Hard Day's Night's probably regrettable. American version of I love Beatles' second album. The American version of Beatles' second album is a freaking rocker. And just really one song after another, great stuff. I have so much pain. I gotta call it quits. Thanks so much for watching. It's been a real thrill. I can't tell you how much it means to me to have lived long enough to present these wonderful, incredibly, I think, empowering lists to do things for the validation. That's the word I'm looking for. So, but again, to remind everybody, everything I said here is opinions. They have nothing to do with, I don't have a list of footnotes with citations attached to them. But, that's part of the whole raison d'etre of the thing is to try to, inspire people to go look these things up for themselves. I'll say a lot of controversial things, and I'm usually, you know, at the very least in the ballpark, if not right on the money with a lot of the stuff, at least, to my knowledge, the best of my knowledge. And but I know that it seems like outlandish that a lot of people just look past so many of these things in life that are so important and critical that it would be eye-opening and startling for people to see somebody looking like this and actually wind up being a prolific font of objective truth and counterintuitive reasoning against the prevalent accepted common knowledge of our society at large. Our society at large is malignant. It's been perverted to the point of almost being irretrievable. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for being you, and thanks for crushing the frickin' like button and all the other stuff that needs to happen in order for these things to self-perpetuate. Gotta love it. Thanks for all the extra tips and donations, because I'm almost at an unsurvivable level of pain and anguish and poor health. And, every little bit counts. So thanks for all of that. And thanks for being a part of the change that we need to see in the world. Being part of it is, that's critical. And, let's try and get through this mess together. What do you say? Hey, what